Hello and welcome to another episode of FinTech Focus TV with me, Toby. We are here in New York City at the Fix America's Trading Conference, and it's an absolute pleasure to have Erin and Kevin from Virtu. Welcome to the show. Great to see you.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Great to meet you.
Super excited.
So it is exciting, and I know you're speaking later on about the subject that's been on everyone's lips all year, AI, probably all last year as well. There's loads going on in that sort of space, and we're going to talk a little bit of data with you in a second. But let's kick off, Kevin, with you talking about Virtu. Give us a little bit of an overview for those who haven't come across Virtu so far.
Yes, so Virtu's got a couple of different businesses. It's probably known as a market maker and a provider of execution services for global buy sides, but the part that really gets into data that we're most excited about is the analytics business. And so it's really a financial technology firm in that sense, is that we've got work we're doing, taking client transaction data, doing analysis on behalf of clients.
Fantastic. Going well at the moment from everything I hear and read and look at. It's some exciting times for the business.
Yeah, it is exciting times, yeah. There's just all these different data sources that we have access to, analyses that clients want to do, and a lot of what's happening is really in the asset classes outside of equities as well, where there's all different types of fixed income data sources available to bring into the trading analytics process.
I think that's the theme of what we're talking about, or what I've been talking about so far in the interviews I've done today is, obviously Fix's origins being in that equity space, about the multi-asset side of things going into various different areas. And there's so much evolution. It's 30 years of Fix this year. We're seeing evolution all the time in terms of what happens. And as I said, look, AI is part of it. I know there's Fix working groups in AI. You've got a very interesting panel that's coming up, Erin, in a little bit later on today. And every time you look at AI, data's inextricably linked into the whole process as well. So give us a wet our whistle, tell us a little bit, give us a spoiler alert of some of the things you're going to be talking about later on.
Absolutely. So I have to admit, Toby, that when I got invited, this is the second time I've actually been on this same panel at Fix about AI. And last year was my first time, so it was great. Everything I said was brand new. Yeah. Everyone was excited to listen to what I had to say. But when I got invited back this year, I had a bit of imposter syndrome, because I was like, I don't actually feel like I have anything drastically new to show them. But I took a beat and thought about it, and I thought back to one of my favorite analogies, which is comparing AI to electricity. So when electricity first came out, we very simply went around and replaced candles with light bulbs. Yeah. That's all we did, right? It wasn't this drastic. We didn't have self-driving electric cars on day one. We literally were like, okay, now instead of lighting my light, I turn it on with a flip. And I was like, so what I'm talking about this year is how we've continued to somewhat replace the candles when it comes to adding AI into trading. And in a lot of cases, we're giving traders co-pilots, but where I think the biggest innovation, the biggest evolution that you said before, is actually in the data. So we at Virtu, within our group, have fantastic data. We have big data sets. They go back several years. But until we started applying AI to it, I don't know if we really knew the data the way we did. So we would have tags in the data that we just assumed were correct. Something like, I traded this order on the close. But until we applied AI to that, we hadn't stopped to think, well, what does that actually mean to you? If you're a really big asset manager trading something on the close, you started in the morning. It's still a close trade to you. You're still trying to target the close, but you started in the morning versus a really small asset manager. You traded on the close, you got the closing price. Still tagged the same way in our data set, but actually different approaches. So we've really had to take a look at the data, kind of peel back all these layers, all these labels that were there, and start to rethink and use new data to kind of get to the same answer, the same solution. Where I think the even more interesting data challenges, though, come is with the multi-asset data. In equity, the price is the price. It's printed, it's public, you can buy it, it's there. But I think some of the stuff that we've been doing in the fixed income space is challenging and interesting.
Unless the face of a man who's been challenged.
Well, somebody comes up with the big idea, and then all the work has to happen to actually organize it and make it all work. But no, it's true. And some of these data sources are actually delivered over Fix. A lot of the real-time stuff still comes through that way, and you need to be able to use that in your analysis, often linked to the historic data, and that's where the magic really happens. There's a lot of work has to happen to make the really relevant recent information connect to all this historic information that you've managed to massage and then run certain AI programs on. So.
It's really interesting that you guys spoke about this as well, because data is this really integral part of everything we've been talking about. And I look at this industry and think about its use of data. And I've long thought that data is used so brilliantly in other areas, other industries. And in our space, with how much data there naturally is, its utilization has just been stymied so far, and it's been lagging the rest of the industry. And I feel like there's this sea change, as you said beforehand, about what AI can do that to rapidly accelerate all things. Because everyone's, for years I've been sat there in the day job, my recruitment job, and been talking about data and been seeing people talking about, data, but not actually really having strategies that that move the needle in any significant way. And what you just said sort of lit this light bulb, so coin the pun of the electricity thing you've been talking about. But it is like a light bulb moment for the space, isn't it, to work out actually how do we talk about having data strategies to having things that really make a difference in terms of efficiency, productivity, information, everything that we're talking about, isn't it? That's kind of where I guess you're going with everything you're talking about, right?
Yeah, I mean, I will say in finance, so when I went to go get my master's, I thought exactly what you just said, where I was like, in finance, we're so far behind. Yeah. Everyone has amazing data. I can't wait to hear what they're doing at Spotify, right? Like, wow, I love my weekly playlist. I can't wait to hear all the cool data they had to get to that. Yeah. In finance, I will say that we have a lot of data. Yeah. We've been saving our data for a long time, versus in other industries that don't have that same history. I think where we maybe have lacked is on our challenging of that data. We would take the data in, we would store it, we've been doing it forever. It's absolutely right, right? And now we're kind of going back, I think, both with the AI lens, but also with the fixed income lens. And just because you purchased that data, just because it came in, just because you normalized it and massaged it and saved it, still doesn't mean it's correct. I think that's, in my mind, the bigger shift in finance is going back and re-questioning some of these data elements that we have.
And I think it's also about taking that data, as you say, the significance of it being absolutely on point is critical. But then it's actually turning it into, how do we turn it into something that becomes actionable and insightful and make a difference in terms of what we're talking about. And it feels like that's really the journey that's accelerating at pace at the moment, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, there's a direct financial impact on getting this right. Right? And so I'm not saying that other industries don't have that impact, but it's measured in different ways in financial services. So, there's, and also all the innovation in financial services over the years, there wasn't a thought of, wow, I really want to use all this data for all this research purposes. Let me get it right before this innovation goes into place. Somebody came up with a great product idea, it got implemented, data was stored, and then the next product idea came in place, data was stored, and you didn't think about the old data. So we're doing that work now to clean up these great ideas, great data sources, and connect them together to actually try and solve something to make it actionable and profitable. So that's a lot of work.
And Kevin, you mentioned that looking through the agenda beforehand, you're excited about this particular panel. What do you want to get out of it? What's interesting to you? Obviously, hearing Erin and being the sort of the fanboy for that particular panel.
Anytime I hear about the practical use of AI in financial services, I get excited, right? Because the practical side of cleaning up the data is that you got to do that no matter what. But how it's actually being applied. Now, I think if somebody's got a really, truly revolutionary approach to something, they're probably not talking about it now because it's now proprietary and they really want to make some money off of that. So, but in this kind of audience, the people are going to be talking about what they've seen work, the kind of pitfalls. That's always very useful. So,
even as a panelist, I will say one of the biggest things I take away from talking about AI at conferences is not entirely the application of AI. So I created a new model that predicts trading strategy. We're all working on that. It's partly dealing with the bias and the risk that comes associated with deploying AI models. I think we're going to get some interesting perspectives from some of the other panelists on that today.
And it's a relatively similar panel to last year, from what I understand as well.
It's exactly the same.
But I think that's also a really interesting sort of take, isn't it? Because, as you said, last year it was very much the emperor's new clothes. This is something there which was on every, and it stayed on every single agenda all the way through. This is something now where people are looking at this and thinking about this, and they've got something which is incredibly important, and we're seeing use cases start to come in now at various different phases. So I think whilst you're there and you have imposter syndrome of what's changed, you're absolutely right in breaking it down. It's a journey that we're on that I think sometimes when you're in the thick of it, you don't recognise how far everything's come at the same time.
You don't at all. it's funny, when we were prepping for the call, I was like, I have nothing to say. I have nothing that's different. And then I took a step back and I was like, well, actually, we've released 5 new models since I was into production. Last year, I was just talking about research, and it was these hypothetical scenarios, and we think this could work. And this year, we've actually deployed some things. And you're right, absolutely. When you're in the thick of it, I was like, oh, I have nothing to show for a year.
And so let's finish on Virtu. So you mentioned at the offset, exciting times. There's lots that you guys are doing with regards to this unique opportunity that I think we've got. I think there's a collision of lots of different things happening in the markets at the moment that create opportunity, and I would suggest that AI is right in the very thick of that. And the companies there who've embraced it have got that first mover advantage. That there is an industry that's aching for things to develop into it. So talk to us about what that means for Virtu, what you guys are excited about, what we can expect to see, and why people should be getting in touch with you guys right now.
Right, yeah, so our approach to this has been with some very healthy skepticism in certain things. We don't want to build the magic trading widget that solves every problem, because we think that's a problem that probably can't be solved, at least across the entire community.
Or if it is a bunch of different things coming together, which I think
exactly.
That's sort of,
So we really have focused on is the client-centric view of access to data and then these models. And what I mean by that is, we provide a lot of data sets, we provide a lot of analysis, but they really are geared towards the client interacting with them. And I think clients have found it's pretty easy to interact with our data, interact with our models, because they really are geared towards their specific usage of it, as opposed to something we could just magically sell to everybody and it just works automatically for them. So that I get excited about that, because we learn so much from what the clients want. We build things that are fairly targeted, and then we have some generic components that we can then try and move on to the next project.
Yeah, I echo that.
on repeat. Well, listen, Erin, I wish you the very best of luck with the panel later on. I'm sure you will be the star of the show with everything you're talking about there as well. Kevin, great to meet you. Lovely to hear everything that's happening on with the business, and enjoy the rest of the day. I think that panel, from everything I'm hearing, not to load any pressure on you here, but it's what everyone wants to be talking about at the moment, so I'm sure you'll smash it and have a great time as well. Thanks for coming on the show.
Great.
Lovely to meet you.
Thanks for having us.
Catch you soon, and thank you all for watching. We'll see you soon on the next episode of FinTech Focus TV. Thank you.